The dust-laden wind whistled through Copper Ridge, Colorado, as Emma Wilson stepped off the westbound train in the summer of 1878, her trembling hand clutching a crumpled letter from a man she'd never met but had promised to marry. At 22, with nothing left for her in Boston after her parents' passing, Emma had answered an advertisement seeking a bride for a rancher out west, a decision that had seemed rational when made in the safety of her childhood home, but now filled her with dread as she faced the unknown frontier. Her auburn hair, once meticulously arranged beneath her bonnet, had come loose during the arduous journey, and she attempted to smooth the wayward strands while scanning the platform for her intended husband, Frank Holloway. The weathered station was bustling with activity, cowboys loading cattle, merchants hawking wares, and locals exchanging gossip. Yet no one approached Emma, and as the minutes stretched into an hour, she began to worry. "Excuse me," she finally asked the ticket agent, a grizzled man with spectacles perched on his nose. "I'm looking for Mr. Frank Holloway. He was to meet me here today." The agent's expression shifted from disinterest to something akin to pity. "Frank Holloway." "Madam, I'm afraid Mr. Holloway passed 3 weeks ago. Fever took him quick-like." Emma felt her knees weaken. "Passed, but I received no word." "Mail's unreliable out here," he shrugged, then added more gently, "Sorry about your situation, madam." Word traveled quickly in Copper Ridge, and by evening, the entire town knew that Frank Holloway's mail-order bride had arrived only to find herself widowed before she was even wed. Emma took a room at the town's only boarding house run by Mrs. Jenkins, a severe woman with a perpetual frown. "I don't normally accept single women with no prospects," Mrs. Jenkins informed her coldly, "but I suppose you can stay until you sort yourself out. 1 week, no more." The following days proved challenging as Emma ventured into town seeking employment. At the general store, Mr. Pearson hardly glanced up from his ledger before dismissing her. "No positions available," he said curtly. "Besides, we don't need outsiders taking jobs from locals." The schoolhouse, the dress shop, even the laundry, all doors closed before Emma could fully state her qualifications. She overheard the whispers as she passed by groups of women. Mail-order bride, desperate type, probably has a checkered past. No decent woman travels alone to marry a stranger. By the 5th day, Emma's modest savings were dwindling and desperation began to set in. She sat alone at the church steps, contemplating her dwindling options, when she noticed a man watching her from across the street. He was tall, with broad shoulders accentuated by a worn leather vest over a simple shirt. A cowboy hat shadowed his face, but she could make out a strong jaw covered with several days' stubble. Unlike the other townspeople who either stared openly or averted their gaze in disapproval, his steady look carried no judgment. As if making a decision, he crossed the dusty street toward her. Emma straightened her posture, determined to maintain dignity despite her circumstances. "Miss Wilson?" he asked, his voice deep but unexpectedly gentle. "Yes," she answered cautiously. "Name's Adam Norwood. I worked for Frank Holloway." He removed his hat, revealing sandy brown hair and eyes the color of a summer sky. "I heard about your situation." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "It seems everyone has. Folks around here can be narrow-minded," he said, his expression apologetic. "Frank was a good man. He spoke highly of you from your letters. You knew him well. 7 years as his foreman. His ranch is about 5 miles outside town." Adam shifted his weight, seeming uncomfortable with what he needed to say next. "Thing is, he left the ranch to me in his will. Said I was the closest thing to family he had." Emma nodded, unsure where this conversation was leading. "I came to offer you a position," Adam continued, "as housekeeper. The place needs tending, and with spring roundup coming, I could use the help." Emma hesitated. Working as a housekeeper for a single man would only worsen her reputation in town. Yet, the alternative was returning east penniless and defeated. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Norwood, but I'm not sure it would be proper." Mrs. Langley from the next property over comes by most days to help with things. She's a respectable widow, would make everything proper." He seemed to read her thoughts. "It's honest work, Miss Wilson, with fair pay and your own quarters in the house." Before Emma could respond, Mrs. Jenkins appeared on the church steps behind her. "There you are," she said to Emma, her tone cold. "I see you've met Mr. Norwood." Her gaze shifted to Adam, a hint of suspicion in her eyes. "Taking an interest in our new arrival," Adam replaced his hat. "Just offering Miss Wilson employment at the Holloway at my ranch, as housekeeper." Mrs. Jenkins scoffed. "Is that what they're calling it these days?" "This town has standards, Mr. Norwood." Emma felt her face burn with humiliation. Adam's expression hardened. "Standards that include leaving a lady with no resources to fend for herself." "She's hardly a lady," came another voice. Emma turned to see Mrs. Pearson, the store owner's wife, approaching with several other women. "Coming all this way to marry a stranger. What decent woman does such a thing?" Emma rose to her feet, hands trembling with a mixture of shame and anger. "I came here in good faith to trap a lonely man into marriage, Mrs. Pearson interrupted. "Frank chose to send for her," Adam countered, his voice rising. "He wanted a wife, a partner. He spoke of nothing else for months after receiving her letters." "Well, she's not wanted here now," Mrs. Jenkins declared. "Bad for business, having her type at my establishment." Emma felt as though she'd been struck. "My type? Women with no proper place," another townswoman clarified. "No family, no husband, no respectable history." Adam took a step forward, his jaw tight with anger. "That's enough." "This doesn't concern you, Norwood," Mr. Pearson said, having joined his wife. "It does when you're condemning an innocent woman without cause," Adam replied. Then, looking at the growing crowd of disapproving faces, he made a decision. His voice rang out clear and resolute. "If Miss Wilson isn't welcome in your town, then she belongs with me at my ranch." A shocked silence fell over the gathering. "Mr. Norwood," Emma began, stunned by his declaration. "I mean it," he said, turning to her. "Not just as a housekeeper. Frank chose you for a reason, Miss Wilson. He saw something in your letters that made him believe you'd make this harsh land feel like home." He extended his hand to her. "I'm offering you a choice. Stay and fight these small-minded folks, or come with me now and make a fresh start." Emma stared at his outstretched hand, aware that every eye in the gathering was fixed on her. She thought of the long journey she'd made, the hope she'd carried, and the crushing disappointment of the past few days. "This is highly improper," Mrs. Jenkins sputtered. "No more improper than turning your back on someone in need," Adam replied without looking away from Emma. With a deep breath, Emma placed her hand in his. "I accept your offer, Mr. Norwood." Within the hour, Emma had gathered her meager belongings from the boarding house, enduring Mrs. Jenkins' disapproving glares. Adam waited outside with a wagon, helping her up to the seat beside him before setting off toward what would now be her new home. They traveled in silence for a time, the town receding behind them as they followed a well-worn trail through rolling grasslands. Emma watched the horizon, wondering if she'd made another reckless decision. "I want to thank you," she finally said, "for standing up for me back there." Adam kept his eyes on the trail ahead. "No need for thanks. What they did wasn't right. Nevertheless, you didn't have to involve yourself." He glanced at her then. "Frank was more than my employer. He was my friend. When he sent for you, he was happier than I'd seen him in years. Said your letters gave him hope for a future beyond just ranching." Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. "I wish I could have met him." "He would have liked you," Adam said softly. Then, clearing his throat, he added, "I should be clear about my offer. The ranch needs a woman's touch, that's certain, but I'm not expecting. That is, there's no obligation beyond the work we agree on." Emma studied his profile, noting the sincerity in his expression. "I appreciate that, Mr. Norwood." "Adam," he corrected. "If we're going to be living and working together, might as well use first names." As they crested a hill, Emma caught her first glimpse of the Holloway ranch, a sturdy two-story house with a wide porch, several outbuildings, and a corral where horses grazed peacefully. It wasn't grand, but it had a solidity to it that spoke of care and hard work. "It's lovely," she said, genuinely impressed. "Frank built it with his own hands, added to it over the years," Adam explained. "Started with just the main room and kitchen, said he was always building for a family that never came," he paused, "until he found your advertisement response." Upon arriving at the ranch, Emma met Mrs. Langley, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who'd been helping with housekeeping since Frank's passing. She welcomed Emma warmly, showing none of the judgment Emma had faced in town. "Been wondering when someone would bring some youth to this place, Mrs. Langley said, showing Emma to a pleasant bedroom on the second floor. "Frank spoke so fondly of his letters from you, said you had a way with words that made him feel understood." The revelation that Frank had shared their correspondence with others made Emma both embarrassed and oddly touched. She'd poured her heart into those letters, sharing her hopes and fears with a stranger who'd responded with unexpected kindness. The following weeks established a routine. Emma rose early to prepare breakfast for Adam and the ranch hands, then spent her days cleaning, mending, and learning the rhythm of ranch life from Mrs. Langley, who visited 3 times a week. Adam worked from sunup to sundown, managing cattle, mending fences, and handling the business aspects of the ranch. They saw little of each other except at mealtimes, where conversation remained polite but limited. Emma found herself watching Adam when he wasn't looking, the careful way he handled tools, his gentleness with animals, the respect his ranch hands showed him. He was different from the men she'd known in Boston, less polished but more genuine. One evening, as summer deepened into a golden haze across the prairie, Emma found Adam on the porch, whittling a piece of wood. "May I join you?" she asked. He nodded, moving over on the bench. "Beautiful evening." "It is," she agreed, settling beside him. "I never imagined the sky could be so vast. In Boston, buildings block most of the view." "Never been east myself," Adam admitted. "Born in Missouri, came west with my pa when I was 16, been here ever since." "Do you have family nearby?" He shook his head. "Pa died 10 years back." "Mother before that, no siblings?" "I'm sorry," Emma said softly. "It's difficult being alone." "What about you? Any family back east?" Emma sighed. "None living. My mother passed last year, father 6 months after. I worked as a seamstress, but when the shop closed." She trailed off. Frank's advertisement seemed like providence. Adam's hands stilled on the carving. "Life has a way of taking unexpected turns." "Indeed it does," Emma agreed, looking out at the darkening landscape. "Mr. Norwood, Adam, I've been meaning to ask about my position here. The arrangement was rather hastily made. Regretting your decision?" he asked, his expression unreadable. "No," she answered truthfully. "But I wonder about the future. I can't impose indefinitely." Adam set down his carving knife. "You're not imposing. The ranch runs better with you here. The men eat better, the house is organized, and Mrs. Langley says you've learned ranch management faster than anyone she's taught." Emma felt a flush of pleasure at the praise. "That's kind, but eventually you might want to marry, have a family of your own. My presence would complicate things." Adam's gaze met hers, surprisingly intense. "I'm not looking to marry anytime soon." "Oh," Emma said, uncertain why his words disappointed her, "unless..." He paused, seeming to gather his courage. "Unless it was to the right woman." The air between them seemed to still, charged with unspoken possibility. Before Emma could respond, hoofbeats sounded in the yard, and they both turned to see a rider approaching at speed. Adam stood, hand instinctively moving to the pistol at his hip. "It's Jackson," he said, recognizing one of the hands. "Something's wrong." The young cowboy reined in his lathered horse. "Boss, there's trouble. Cattle rustlers hit the north pasture, stole about 30 head, shot Barton when he tried to stop them." Adam was already moving. "How bad?" "Shoulder wound, not fatal. Doc's with him in town." "Round up the men," Adam ordered, turning to Emma. "Stay here, bar the doors. This could get dangerous." "Adam," Emma began, fear tightening her chest. "I'll be back," he promised, his expression softening briefly. "Just need to handle this." Within minutes, he and 5 ranch hands had ridden out, leaving Emma alone with Mrs. Langley, who had been preparing to leave when the commotion started. "Don't you worry," the older woman assured her. "Adam knows what he's doing. Those rustlers picked the wrong ranch to steal from." But Emma did worry, pacing the house until well past midnight before exhaustion forced her to lie down. She woke at dawn to the sound of horses returning. Rushing to the window, she saw Adam dismounting, his shirt stained with blood. Heart pounding, she hurried downstairs and out the door. "You're hurt, not my blood," he assured her, though his face was drawn with fatigue. "Barton's going to be fine. We recovered most of the cattle, caught 2 of the rustlers, sheriff's holding them, and the others," Emma asked. A shadow crossed Adam's face. "Won't be troubling anyone again." The grim implication hung in the air. Emma knew the harsh realities of frontier justice, but seeing it reflected in Adam's eyes made it suddenly, viscerally real. "Come inside," she said gently. "You need rest and food." He allowed her to guide him into the house, where she insisted on examining him despite his protests. Finding only minor scrapes and bruises, she prepared a bath and a meal while he soaked away the dust and blood of the night's events. Later, as he sat at the kitchen table eating the stew she'd prepared, Adam seemed more subdued than usual. "I've never killed a man before," he said suddenly, setting down his spoon. "Always thought I could if necessary, but—" Emma reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "You were protecting what's yours. Still feels wrong," he admitted. "Taking a life, even a thief's." "That you feel that way speaks to your character," Emma said. "A cruel man wouldn't be troubled." He looked up at her then, his blue eyes searching her face. "You're not what I expected, Emma Wilson." "What did you expect? Someone more fragile, I suppose. Eastern women have a reputation for wilting under hardship." Emma laughed softly. "I assure you, poverty and loss are equally difficult in Boston as they are here. Different challenges, same strength required." Adam turned his hand beneath hers, entwining their fingers. "I'm glad you're here." The simple statement warmed Emma more than she could express. For the first time since arriving in Colorado, she felt truly wanted. The rustling incident changed something between them. Adam began including Emma in ranch business, teaching her about cattle breeding, land management, and the economics of ranching. She proved a quick study, applying her organizational skills to the ranch ledgers and finding ways to increase efficiency. "You've got a head for business," Adam remarked one evening as they reviewed the books together. "Frank would have appreciated that." "Do you think of him often?" Emma asked. "Frank, I mean," Adam nodded. "Every day. He gave me a chance when others wouldn't, said my past didn't matter as much as what I did with my future." "Your past?" Adam hesitated. "My father wasn't an honest man, used me in his cons when I was young. When he died, his reputation followed me until Frank hired me anyway." He met her eyes. "Does that change how you see me?" "We all have pasts," Emma replied. "What matters is who you choose to be now." As summer waned into autumn, Emma found herself growing increasingly aware of Adam's presence, the sound of his boots on the porch, his deep laugh with the ranch hands, the way his gaze often lingered on her when he thought she wasn't looking. She caught herself making special efforts with her appearance, wearing her hair in styles he'd once complimented, choosing dresses that brought out the green in her eyes. Their evenings on the porch became a cherished ritual, conversations stretching long into the night as they shared stories of their lives before meeting. Emma told him about her dreams of having her own dress shop someday. Adam confessed his ambition to breed horses alongside the cattle business. "You could still have that shop," he said one night as a harvest moon hung low over the prairie. "Copper Ridge needs a good seamstress. The ladies would forget their disapproval quick enough if you offered better work than they could get elsewhere." Emma smiled at his confidence in her. "Perhaps. Though I've grown fond of ranch life." "Have you?" Adam asked, watching her closely. "I have," she admitted. "There's an honesty to it. The work is hard but meaningful." Adam seemed to wrestle with himself before speaking again. "Emma, there's something I need to ask you." Her heart quickened. Yes, before he could continue, the sound of an approaching wagon interrupted them. Squinting into the darkness, Adam stood. That's not one of ours. As the wagon drew closer, Emma recognized Mrs. Pearson and her husband, along with Reverend Thomas from the town church. What on earth? She murmured. Adam's expression hardened. Stay behind me. The trio pulled up to the house, Mr. Pearson looking uncomfortable while his wife wore a determined expression. The Reverend, a mild man in his 60s, seemed to be mediating whatever mission had brought them here. Evening, Norwood, Mr. Pearson called. Miss Wilson? What brings you out so late? Adam asked, his tone wary. Mrs. Pearson straightened her shoulders. A matter of propriety. It's been nearly 4 months since Miss Wilson came to stay here under circumstances that raised eyebrows. My arrangements are none of your concern, Emma replied, stepping forward despite Adam's protective stance. The reputation of our community is everyone's concern, Mrs. Pearson countered. People talk, Miss Wilson. They speculate about the nature of your living situation. Reverend Thomas held up a placating hand. What Mrs. Pearson means is that there has been concern for your moral welfare, my dear. A young, unmarried woman living with a bachelor, however honorable his intentions. Get to the point, Adam said tersely. Mrs. Pearson sniffed. The point, Mr. Norwood, is that the Ladies' Aid Society has decided to offer Miss Wilson passage back east where she might find more suitable arrangements. Emma felt as though she'd been slapped. You want to send me away? For your own good, Mrs. Pearson insisted. Unless, of course, Mr. Norwood has honorable intentions toward you, in which case the Reverend is prepared to perform a ceremony immediately. Adam stepped forward, his face thunderous. You come to my property in the middle of the night to demand either a wedding or Emma's departure. Who do you think you are, guardians of morality? Mrs. Pearson replied primly. Emma placed a calming hand on Adam's arm. Please let me handle this. She faced the trio squarely. When I arrived in Copper Ridge, not one of you offered me kindness or assistance. You judged me without knowing me and left me to fend for myself. Now you claim concern for my welfare. Mrs. Pearson had the grace to look slightly abashed, but recovered quickly. The town has had time to reconsider. Several families would be willing to take you in now under proper supervision. How generous, Emma replied coldly. But I'm not a charity case to be passed around. I have meaningful work here, and she glanced at Adam, finding unexpected resolve in his steady gaze. And I have someone who values me for who I am, not what the town thinks of me. Adam's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with unexpected tenderness. Emma belongs here, he told the visitors firmly, with or without your approval. Reverend Thomas cleared his throat. The issue, young man, is not approval but propriety. If your feelings for Miss Wilson are sincere, they are, Adam interrupted. More than I can express to an audience that came here to threaten and intimidate rather than understand. Emma's heart raced at his words, the confirmation of what she'd begun to hope but hadn't dared assume. Then make it official, Mr. Pearson suggested, softer than his wife. End the gossip. The Reverend brought his Bible. Adam turned to Emma, his expression suddenly vulnerable. This isn't how I planned to ask, he said quietly, for her ears only. And I won't be pressured into it if you're not ready. Say the word and I'll send them away. Emma searched his face, finding nothing but sincerity and something deeper that made her breath catch. Ask me properly, she whispered back. Not for them, for us. Without hesitation, Adam knelt before her, still holding her hand. Emma Wilson, I've come to love you more than I thought possible. Your strength, your kindness, your determination. Will you marry me? Not because they demand it, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Tears blurred Emma's vision as she nodded. Yes, she managed. Yes, I will. Adam rose and kissed her, a gentle, reverent touch that promised more when they weren't being observed by unwelcome visitors. Emma heard Mrs. Pearson's sharp intake of breath but couldn't bring herself to care. Well, Reverend Thomas said, looking genuinely pleased. Shall we proceed with the ceremony then? Adam looked to Emma for confirmation. She nodded, adding, "But not tonight. I want Mrs. Langley present and the ranch hands who have become like family. 1 week from today, here at the ranch with proper preparations." Mrs. Pearson looked ready to object, but her husband placed a restraining hand on her arm. "That seems reasonable. Reverend, I'd be honored," the older man agreed, "and may I offer my congratulations. It seems love finds its way despite our human efforts to dictate its path." After the unexpected visitors departed, Emma and Adam stood alone on the porch under the vast canopy of stars. Emma's heart still raced with the enormity of what had just transpired. "Did you mean it?" she asked softly. "Or was it just to satisfy them?" Adam cupped her face in his calloused hands. "Emma Wilson, I've been working up the courage to ask you for weeks. Every morning I wake up wondering if today will be the day you realize you could do better than a rough cowboy with a questionable past." "There is no one better," she whispered, placing her hand over his heart. "You saw me when no one else would look. You offered kindness when others offered judgment." "I love you," he said simply. "Have since that day on the church steps, I think. You looked so defiant, so determined despite everything." Emma rose on tiptoe to kiss him properly, without an audience. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer as the kiss deepened into something that spoke of longing finally acknowledged. When they parted, both breathless, Adam pressed his forehead to hers. "1 week seems an eternity to wait to call you my wife," Emma laughed softly. "After all we've overcome, surely we can manage 7 days." The wedding took place exactly as Emma had wanted on the ranch's front porch, decorated with wildflowers gathered by Mrs. Langley and the ranch hands' wives. The entire ranch staff attended, along with, surprisingly, many townspeople who seemed genuinely happy for the couple, even Mrs. Pearson offered congratulations, admitting somewhat grudgingly that perhaps she had been hasty in her judgment. "You've transformed this place," she acknowledged, looking around at the flourishing ranch. "Perhaps Copper Ridge could benefit from your determination." Emma accepted the olive branch graciously. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Mrs. Pearson, even a mail-order bride who arrived too late." As the autumn sun cast golden light across the land that had become her home, Emma exchanged vows with Adam, her heart full to bursting. She thought of the journey that had brought her here, the grief, the fear, the uncertainty, and marveled at how adversity had led her to unexpected joy. "I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes," Adam vowed, his voice steady and sure. "To see you always as I saw you that first day, brave, determined, and worthy of every good thing." "And I promise to make this house the home it was meant to be," Emma replied. "To face each challenge with the strength you helped me discover in myself." As Reverend Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, cheers erupted from the gathered crowd. Adam kissed his bride beneath the vast Colorado sky, sealing a promise that had begun with an act of defiance against a town's prejudice. "Then she belongs with me," he had declared months ago. Now, as Emma looked up into her husband's eyes, she knew with absolute certainty that she did not because circumstances had forced them together, but because love had grown in the most unlikely soil, nurtured by mutual respect and shared dreams. 1 year later, Emma stood on that same porch, watching Adam return from the north pasture with his ranch hands. Their cattle herd had grown, as had the horse breeding program Emma had encouraged him to pursue. The dress shop she'd opened in town 3 months prior was already thriving, with even Mrs. Pearson commissioning a special Sunday dress. As Adam dismounted and climbed the steps to greet her, his smile widened at the sight of the bundle in her arms, their 2-month-old daughter, Grace, sleeping peacefully despite the commotion. "My 2 favorite ladies," he said, kissing Emma before gently touching their daughter's cheek. "How was the roundup?" Emma asked. "Profitable," Adam replied. "The new breeding stock is paying off." Emma leaned into his embrace as they gazed out over the land they both loved. "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if Frank had lived, or if you hadn't spoken up that day in town?" Adam's arm tightened around her waist. Sometimes. But then I remember something Frank told me once. He said life has a way of bringing people where they're meant to be, even if the path seems wrong at first. Emma smiled, looking down at their daughter. He was a wise man. He would have been proud to see what we've built here, Adam said. A real home, a family. As the sun set over Copper Ridge, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and gold, Emma offered a silent thanks to the man whose advertisement had changed her life, and to the town whose rejection had led her to where she truly belonged with a cowboy brave enough to claim her when no one else would.